All right. So the first question is probably the most interesting one. Once in the private, how do we purchase NFA items such as suppressors or FFL items such as a State of the Union citizen? I really want to help you get your mind wrapped around the do's and don'ts and what is private and what is public. And so first and foremost, I don't I don't necessarily, I've never gone out and purchased a silencer or a suppressor. I have purchased and I have made guns. Anything that is made where you've put it together, the 80% lower kind of a thing, or built with your own hands is your product. Doesn't matter if it operates as a suppressor. It is, I don't know what the legal terms are for a suppressor, but you can't necessarily go and purchase a well, first, what's purchasing it is the registered organization. And the same rules and procedures are going to apply for the registered organization. So I want to say you can't, nobody, no man or woman can contract with the federal government. But when you're holding that office of the artificial person, the registered organization, the US citizen, the birth certificate, that's literally what it is. It's under Uniform Commercial Code 9. It's called registered organization. That is the birth certificate. That is the office position that you've stepped into, said, I want to work and hold that office. And you got an employment ID number known as a social security number for it. So once you go private, you're shifting yourself on the DL, on SSA, on these things, and you're shifting yourself from the trustee position to the beneficial interest position, and you're assigning the trustee position to the federal government. And in doing so on all of these contracts, because all these contracts, one way or the other, are putting you in that position as an office holder and trustee. So I know that you're not wanting to hear this, but this is important that you comprehend. You're not purchasing an item, but when you're holding that office and you're signing that application where the all caps name is on the top and where you get down to a signature line, the difference of an office holder is this. An office holder is just signing his name. A beneficial interest position holder puts the word by in front of the signature and then classifies who he is at the end with the word beneficiary. Now, that may or may not get through on an application. And so for me, I'm never, ever, ever buying a registered handgun again. I'm just not. Even if they were to make guns completely or firearms completely illegal, there is nothing, absolutely nothing illegal about creating your own gun that is unregistered. Nothing. Now, there may be some compromise for a US citizen, but you're not that once you become a State of the Union citizen. So personally, I'm not going to counsel you to try to figure an application out, because you don't need one, for any kind of firepower, any kind of gun. A firearm is a registered gun. A firearm is a registered gun. I don't know necessarily if they've classified suppressors or silencers or these different items, lawfully versus another name. Like, here's what they do. To give an example, vehicle is a registered truck or car. Vehicle is the patent, the trademark. And you're giving your MSO to the state, and the state's issuing you a certificate of title. And in doing so, the certificate of title is going to the all caps name. They own the MSO, they own the all caps name, they own everything that owns the all caps name. And you're the trustee, and you're having to hold that office with all the statutes, codes, and ordinances that apply. So why in the world would I want to buy a motor vehicle? I want to buy a truck or a car and have the MSO. Why would I want to buy a registered suppressor with a number on the side when there's guys out there that are making these or teaching people how to make these and buy that. Why would I want to buy a 9 or a 45 or an AR-10 or 15 or any of that when I know I can create it right here without the numbers on it, without registration on it, and allowed for me to hold it and keep it as a state citizen, which is my God-given unalienable right. The difference is when you start going into the public and you start selling things, or like in California, if you were to sell an AR-15 without the provisions that are required, or it wouldn't really fall on you because you would be the grandfather, but whoever would be buying it could be in trouble, and then you could be brought into that a little bit. For me, I just don't dabble in anything in the public. The difference of a public offering is saying, hey, everybody in the public, through an email, through a published publication online, through an advertisement on radio, through an advertisement on TV, I've got an offering of X, and I need you to invest. And if you don't know them, they better be a registered investor, meaning so you're protected and they're protected, and you better have your stuff filed with the SEC for your IPO and its public offering. It's the same. These are public-private understandings that people are able to incorporate with every element of their life. Like if I could get the MSO in my truck, why would I want to get the certificate of title, right? If I can get a gun without a number on it, because what basically is happening is the gun companies for the license to manufacture firearms are paying the state, and the state's giving them a series of numbers to paste on the guns. And then they create that gun, and then you apply for the gun, and you don't realize that the Department of State is basically saying, we own this gun. It's registered, it's theirs. And within the fine print of the language, it complements what I just said. So why would I ever want something in the public when I can have, if I am a state citizen and I know or could be taught how to create a suppressor or a silencer, which absolutely, I'm sure I've looked into this in the past, it can be done. Why would I want to purchase that from somebody where I'd have to go through the process? It doesn't make sense. Why would I want to even if I could do a full reservation of rights? Why would I want to get a gun with a number on it, but the state already owns that? And then I would have to put it in the gun trust, privatize it, go through a whole series of processes and notices to the Department of Justice that is my gun. I'm removing it from being a firearm. I'm scraping the numbers off and just doing a general notice. Literally, that's what you would have to do, and then put it in a gun trust. So when you ask these types of questions, we have to live like a state citizen and not operate with permission from an agency to get something that it can be bought. Now, if you can find a private gun or a private suppressor that does not have registrations on it, and you can purchase stuff privately all day long, private party to private party. And so but going to a manufacturer or to one of these licensed facilities who are selling them, they're going to ask for this, that, or the other application, this or application that. I wouldn't do that, especially when it comes to guns. So like California's gonna, in the United States of America, or excuse me, in the District of Columbia in the United States, they're going to be coming down on guns in the next, I'm going to guess 2 weeks. Mark my word. I'm recording this June 1st, 2022. I bet you Biden does some major move like they just did with Canada within the next 2 weeks to 30 days, somewhere in that time frame, where they say, hey, no more of that. Well, guess what? That has no bearing on a state of the union citizen. Does that mean they're not going to, by color of law, try to go after the driver's license and say I'm associated to that? They have that right in their mind. They can do that. Put some cuffs on a guy that committed a statute or a code violation or an ordinance violation. They can do that all day long. And then I have to deal with that. And I have to deal with the court element and the counterclaim and the proof of claim and these various things that you would do to defend it. So why even operate on the public side if they have no jurisdiction over anything? Let me give you an example. The best thing that helps everybody understand what I just said. There was a guy like 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. He boy had a bunch of wives. Okay. And polygamist, 180 kids. 180 kids. This is the best example of registration. That this is what taught me 101. And this is 30 years ago. I'm like, shut up. They did not say this on the news, but I read something. I don't know if it wasn't Waco, but I read something, I think it was Nevada or Utah, where social services and a bunch of cops came and took all 180 kids. Oh, within a week, like just a few days, they were being delivered by ambulance, escorted by police back to the mothers. The reason? They had no jurisdiction. They had no birth certificates and no marriage licenses. None. Do you know the only thing they can go after the guy on was raping a 13-year-old? One of his wives was 13. He was like 40 something, 50 something, whatever. He was an old guy like me. But he had a young wife with a kid on the way, or a kid. I don't remember. And that's how they got him, was his driver's license, because he had a Cadillac Escalade or whatever, and he had a driver's license. But they couldn't take his kids, and they couldn't charge him with polygamy, and they couldn't charge him with anything other than raping a minor child. And that blew my mind. But what was not told was there was a fleet, like, and I'm not kidding, 20, 30 cars with attorneys following the buses and the ambulances back and the cops back to the compound. And those women won millions and millions and millions of dollars against the state for doing that. And that guy ended up doing life in prison for the child thing. But it was his driver's license that brought jurisdiction, and his lack of knowledge of, and he wasn't a state citizen, and he was a U.S. citizen, but he was operating without licenses, and he thought that he was safe in that element of the kid, I guess. And I don't know how, maybe religious freedom of religion or whatever, but it was private versus public that saved those kids and saved the mothers. And it was public that crushed him on the child rape charge. And so why register anything? Like, every car or truck that I have, I'm literally going to try to get the MSO back from the state, get a duplicate. Duplicate means an exact original copy. And just like an original, it's like if you get a duplicate of something, you're holding the original. So I'm going to ask for whatever microfiche and get it certified from the state that that's a duplicate. Then I'm going to tell the state of California that we're unregistering this motor vehicle, and I'm going to do it for all vehicles, to turn them into cars, trucks, vans, and motorhomes, and take plates off. Eventually, when it gets down to where they're saying you can't travel, I'm going to be riding around without a plate. I'll let them pull it over, and at that time, I'll have a series of documents. I'll let them know that this is a unregistered and unimpoundable and blah blah blah, and hopefully get through whatever mess that they're putting up to keep people in states like California. I think is going to get locked down to where it'll be like a barricaded state at some point. And I'm either going to have a helicopter fly me out or a jet fly me out, private, or what have you. But I really want you to understand, Joel, the element of getting these things. Like, I could fill out an application for a firearm, and I could get one. I don't have any issues, because I still hold the license. I could use my passport. Passport is like a real ID, because they verify that you got a birth certificate. So the passport is like real ID, and I can give proof of residence. And this is the critical function, is like they need to see a bill or something with your name on it, with a residential address. It's not a PO box. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, that would have to be faked in my position because I don't have any name of anything or any residential address anywhere. Like right now, if you were to ask me where I live, it's right here. No. Where's your address? I don't have an address. You can send something to my private foundation, but I don't have an address. What do you mean you don't have it? I just told you I don't have an address. Well, where do you live? That's none of your business. That's private. But if you're really wanting to know, it's right here. And it sounds funny, but it's a literal question with a literal answer. And it pisses people off, but they understand what you're doing because jurisdiction is gained by your address, and jurisdiction is gained by you admitting to holding the office of the artificial person. Do you understand the charge instrument has been presented before you? And, I'll be more than happy to, waive any of my unalienable God-given rights at this moment and accept the full liability of the charge instrument, blah, 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 upon proof of claim of da, 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 da. And they get pissed off at that, but you're not saying no or yes or nolo contendere. You're just basically upon proof of claiming everything, and they have to. And then they're going to try to enter a charge for you or a plea for you. No, I'm sorry. And then you get this stuff on the record, and then the court reporter and stenographer is going to be lying out his butt. And so you got a court reporter in the office or in the aisles out here making sure, because in California they don't, I've seen them literally lie on these things about what was said, what was done, the record proceedings. And so when it comes to your life, your freedom, your whatever, and I know this question is so long-winded, but when it comes to your life, your freedom, you want your posse in the audience with their affidavits ready to go. You want your court stenographer in the audience there ready to go, because I've seen it where they have lied out their butts, and we submitted 30 affidavits into the clerk of the court about the lies that the clerk of the court was submitting before the record of the court, immediately disqualifying the judge, disqualifying the court reporter and the record. And it was kicked out of that court, brought into another court. 4 judges doing the same thing, lie. And finally, the whole case was blown out and dismissed because they did not, under a FREDA waiver, they did not have a speedy trial done within the 60 days. So we nailed them on their own waivers, or lack of a waiver being done. They lied that there was a waiver admitted to, and he never did. And we put 30 affidavits together and slammed them and said, you guys are flat out lying. You're disqualified. And kicked them off. We disqualified the record, and the next judge tried to do the same thing, disqualified him. Next judge tried to do the same, disqualified him. Finally, the 4th judge, we put in blowing it out under the lack of a FREDA waiver being done, and it was day 63, and boom, case dismissed. We set a precedent in the Orange County Court, and you cannot find that case anywhere in the Orange County courts. Anywhere. There was, and I'm not exaggerating, it was a normal sized courtroom. There was no less than 20 sheriffs. There was 9 public defenders sitting in the audience whispering, do this, do this, do this, do this. There was every single prosecuting attorney in the building in that courtroom. The prosecuting attorney over the case, I was talking to him between rounds, and the main big bully of the whole building comes out and says, don't talk to my guy. He was all pissed off, and I was telling the guy, I said, we're going to win. This is why. And I was in his ear, and I'm like, you're not doing this right. You're not doing this right. I got 30, and I was telling him what was going on to the prosecuting attorney in the hallway outside. And because they, and this is why I'm saying, as a state of the union, we got to know who we are. You got to know what's going on. You got to know how to play their games. And because they play games. These guys are the best ping pong players I've ever seen. And it's just slowing down. It's knowing who you are, understanding you're not fighting anything. And once you get past these moments, these hard moments in front of these judges, and without waiving your rights, without admitting to anything, and upon proof of claim, and let them do what they're going to do. They're going to start lying, cheating, and stealing, and robbing, and that's what they do. And when they don't get their game, they become bullies, but then they find out how many people you got in the audience. And that's the important thing. I saw a judge say this. I saw the court reporter report this. I saw XYZ, not defendant, but man, rebut the presumption by saying this. And we just created all these affidavits, printed them all out. They all signed them, and that was done over lunch. We had printers with us at Denny's, and we walked back into court and put them into the record of the court, and court froze for 2 hours, went to another judge, and they acted like none of that existed, and they started completely over. How do you plea? Starting day one again, as if we didn't go through that at the arraignment, a week before. And so then we could have had them on a delayed arraignment. You know what I'm saying? It's been 9 days since if you've been arrested, you got to be arraigned within, I think it's 72 hours or something. It's 24 hours, but if it's a weekend, 72 hours. And so the point I'm trying to make is, do you want to even have that element? Why don't you just buy private? Because I don't want to deal with anything that they're handing over to the state. So I'm going to get my MSOs back eventually, and I'm going to remove them from the DMV, and I'm going to take what belongs to God. I'm going to pledge it back to God. I don't know of anybody out there. I know I've heard of a couple of people out there that are doing MSOs, pulling them back. I don't know of anybody out there. So that's something I got to find. But for the most part, and this is the longest answer I think I've ever given, maybe. For the most part, I don't buy public. That belongs to them in advance before you even get a chance, and you will never own it, ever. And so purchase privately and or build privately.